we're going over what we believe to be the 7 most unique commanders in the entire format.
I'm your host, Joe Cherries.
I'm your host, Beezy. That makes us Nitpicking Nerds. Renowned eaters of YouTube. We love to eat, and you can help us eat through Patreon by sending money, not food, directly to us. You send money directly to us, and then we buy food with it, and it's really just great for everybody.
And we will not make a mukbang video as much as Beezy seemed to imply that was what we were going to do.
No.
Now what we're going to do, we're just going to eat food off camera like normal people.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll eat food on camera. It's really not that outlandish.
I guess that's fair. So I guess if you want us to see us eat food on camera, get us to 1,000 patrons. 1,000 patrons, and we'll do an episode where we make a normal video, but there's food here.
And this episode's going to be a normal video, but Dragon Shield's going to be awesome in the beginning, like they always are. They're super sweet, and they're the best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
Exactly. I would recommend you go out right now, get yourself some Dragon Shields, and while you're at it, might as well just use our EU/US links in the description to help the channel while also buying stuff for you with no extra charge to you. I mean, that just seems great.
And just remember this. For the past 10 plus years, Nitpicking Nerds have sleeved every single deck in them. And every time we've tried other sleeves, you know what we do? We go, ew, that was gross. Put back in on the Dragon Shields. The only sleeve that's ever stood the test of time for the nerds.
Okay, I don't want to be that guy, but this reminds me of that one SpongeBob episode.
Oh, go ahead.
Where he tries Gary's food. That's us trying the other sleeves. He just goes,
and like he's so happy. I'll put it on screen.
Yeah, you put it on screen. They know what's up. How about 7 unique commanders, Cherries? Also, happy birthday to everyone's birthday is today.
Yes, we went through and we literally looked at 1,000 plus commanders, almost all
10,000.
Yeah, no.
We did.
There isn't 10,000 commanders to look at. We looked at all the commanders, and we decided on the most unique. And what we did is we picked commanders that had the most unique decks. So what this means is we tried to avoid something like a Feather. Though Feather is an extremely unique commander with not much like her, something like Zada ends up looking very similar in what it wants to do. Something like Orvar ends up looking similar in what it wants to do. But we kind of picked what we felt were the most unique commanders. This is not a science, so you can say you think this one's more unique than this. Obviously, that's going to be true. This is subjective. It's our opinion.
No, but also I will request right now, if you find a commander that's very similar to one of the commanders that we put, you need to start your comment with actually, and then I'll listen to it. I won't listen to any other comments.
Yeah, so yeah, lots of actually comments in this one.
And I'll give you an actually in response.
Yes, let's actually start the video.
Yes.
So Baba Lysaga is our first commander that we have chosen. Baba Lysaga is 1 green black for a 3/3. You tap it and sack up to 3 permanents you control. If there was 3 permanent types among the cards sacrificed this way, you draw 3 cards, gain 3 life, and each opponent loses 3 life. And I just love this deck. I built it with my partner recently, Christian.
Not me.
Not Beezy. My actual partner. Beezy's not gay, turns out.
I'm a business partner.
Yeah, Beezy is my business partner. So, Baba Lysaga, we built this deck, and I just realized it wants so many fun, cool, unique cards that most decks don't care for, or if most decks do want them, they don't want it for this reason. So let's start with Rancor. It is a card a lot of decks want because it wants to pump power and you want to give trample. That's not what this deck wants it for at all. It wants to sacrifice the Rancor over and over and over again to Baba Lysaga's ability to get the enchantment and then put it back in its hand after drawing the 3 cards. It's so awesome how much this deck makes use of something like Rancor without caring about what the text on Rancor actually does.
Something you mentioned that I had never thought about because I've never built this deck is the artifact creature land. So like Blinkmoth Nexus, you play it as a land in your deck because it doesn't really take up any real slots. But then when you want to activate Baba, you just animate the land. It becomes an artifact creature land. And you just sacrifice that by itself after floating a mana, and now you're up 3 cards.
Oh, it's so awesome. There's some of the best cards in the whole deck. Inkmoth, Blinkmoth, the Mishra's Factory, whatever it is.
Yeah, we're playing Inkmoth Nexus without attacking with it.
Without attacking with it. We don't care about doing anything else with it other than turning it into that creature land and then sacrificing it, getting rid of it so that we can draw 3 cards. Each opponent loses 3 life. It's such a unique way to use a land. This deck also often will play things like Ashaya, Soul of the Wild, because it turns all of your stuff into land. All your creatures become lands.
Because you really don't want to sacrifice real lands too often.
Not too often, or not all the time, even though this deck also very good with things like World Shaper, because you can afford to sacrifice a bunch of lands.
Plus it'll still the deck's still ramping, so.
Yeah, it's so silly. Ashaya literally turns all your creatures into forests, and now that's usually not what you're looking for out of a Shia. It's like, oh, a Shia is cool because it triggers landfall a lot. That's usually what you're playing a Shia for.
Plus, it's big.
Plus, it's really big creature. We just care that it makes anything into a sackable land.
I think definitely my favorite card in this deck is Journey to Eternity. I already love this card, but you enchant something, and then when the creature dies, Journey to Eternity comes back as a land, and the creature comes back. But Babala Saga is worded in the weirdest way, so let's say we play Meteor Golem, and then we enchant it with Journey to Eternity. So now we have an artifact, creature, and enchantment. Babala Saga can sacrifice all three of those things, all two of those permanents, to her ability. Journey to Eternity still triggers. You still get Journey back, and you still get Meteor Golem back.
Yeah, such an awesome.
Like, what?
Just like an absurdly good interaction, absurdly cool. Speaking of making things into other types, which we just talked about, Liquid Metal Torque gets like this absurdly high boost. It's already a mana rock, which we don't play too much in green, but when that mana rock has extreme utility, like turning any permanent we control into an artifact, adding a type to it, so now we have to sacrifice one less thing. That's huge.
It also is an artifact if for some reason you really need to sack it. I don't think we will, but we're going to make other things artifacts.
I don't even think that that's possible because Babala Saga's activation just asks for an artifact. It makes things artifacts. It would have to be tapped for some reason. Another card that is usually unplayable garbage but just finds a home in this deck, Uvin Wild Mysteries. 1, it's an enchantment, so that's okay, that's already something. 2, whenever a non-token creature dies, you investigate, meaning you get a clue, which is an artifact. So it's already covering 2 types by itself. And then when you sacrifice clues, you get 1/1 token humans, which are creatures. It can cover all 3 types in so many different ways. It's such a weird card that is almost good nowhere, except for your clue deck, right?
Yeah, maybe humans? I don't know.
It's like good nowhere, but in this deck, it's legitimately just a big piece of the puzzle that does something very strong.
I also really love Farika. She makes enchantment snakes from your own, out of exiling things from your own graveyard. And that's 2 types right there. Creatures and enchantments. Boom. Now just find an artifact and you're good to go. I love Farika.
It's also a little piece of graveyard hate that you can leave up when you need to, right?
You can hand out 1/1s. It's political. If someone's attacking with an Atali, I'm going to give the defender a 1/1 death touch.
Also,
I'm going to give him that.
Anytime that Farika is online, it's a creature enchantment. So it's 2 types.
Farika, no, sorry.
Sometimes that's just going to happen.
No.
Sometimes you're just going to sacrifice the Farika to get the value, because the whole goal with Babala Saga, as you might have noticed with all this, is knocking down the number of permanents you actually have to. You don't want to have to sacrifice an actual enchantment, an actual creature, and an actual artifact. No. We want to sacrifice like Rancor, which we're going to get back. We want to sacrifice the artifact mainland, which covers all 3 by itself. We want to use liquid metal coating to cover it. That's like the whole Babala Saga. Like, what else is doing that? What else cares to do that?
I mean, there's even more. Like, we haven't even touched on some of the planeswalkers you can play. You can play a planeswalker, minus it, especially some of the like jankier ones that don't have like pluses. Just throw its ability out, minus, and then just sacrifice it and draw cards.
Yeah, and some of the planeswalkers make creatures. So you use that planeswalker, make a creature, and then sacrifice the creature and the planeswalker, and then whatever else with it. Boom! You've got it from one card making 2 permanent types. Seems to be the goal with this card.
This next one is sort of like begrudgingly unique, because I would never build this deck, and I don't think this deck looks very fun. But we can't deny that Hinata Dawnclad is doing some really wonky things. It makes your spells cost 1 less for each target, and the opponents cost 1 more for each target. But when you have X spells that target an indeterminate number of things, they just cost X is free for every single target, and then you just pay like the red or whatever.
Yeah, so it gets really silly really, really fast. And ultimately what's hilarious about this deck is cards that you would never see in other decks. Like, never. Like, they're unplayable garbage.
Like some of the following 7 cards. Not all of them, but like, let's say 5 of them.
Like Aurelia's Fury. X, red, white. I can't remember colors for a second there. Divide whatever damage X is among any number of targets, meaning you're just going to choose every single target you can.
For 1.
Those creatures can't block, and their controllers can't cast, not their controllers, but the players that you hit can't cast non-creature spells.
Yeah, the creatures are just tapped, so they can't really attack or block depending on when you cast it. And this is red-white. We get to tap all of our opponent's creatures, deal 1 to our opponents, and silence them for the turn.
Yeah, it's just silly because this card is terrible. Like, you're never going to pay like 7 red-white to tap down some creatures, maybe kill 1 or 2. It's like, that's terrible. The rate is terrible. But turns out we can actually make it good by making it just cost red and a white.
Then there's things like Reality Spasm, blue X, instant, tap or untap X target permanents. So all your lands or everything you don't control, the choice is yours, and this makes it into basically just a ridiculous ritual that you can reuse.
It's a ridiculous ritual, like over the top, extreme. How many lands do you have? Because you're gonna get that much mana. Oh, do you have things like
rocks?
Yes. Do you have things like Gilded Lotus that make 3 mana? Oh, it makes even extra mana than that. This card is just kind of silly because, again, this is a terrible Magic card. Like, this card doesn't do anything. It's such garbage until you put it in exactly this deck.
Yeah, we'll get into the reusing a little bit later, but for now, Magma Opus feels like literally actually was designed to work with this card. I would think it would be because they're basically right next to each other in sets. I think they wanted this to be a standard thing, but you're targeting 6 things total with Magma Opus, so it just costs blue-red. You make a 4/4, you draw 2 cards, you tap something, I think, and then you like divide 4 damage. It's just like complete value city.
Ready to have your reality warped? Right next to each other in sets, they're a year apart.
It's still the same standard.
For a little bit, yes, but a year apart is a big difference. So Magma Opus is just, it's weird because this card just, it literally everywhere, every single thing it does, it says target on it. It's so weird that it's worded out.
Target 2 permanents, like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. But like also, like when you divide the damage that it can put out, you can choose up to 4 targets, so even less. This thing always gets down to the red, blue for you. Also, one of my favorite janky cards makes its way into its list usually. Soulfire Eruption. 6 red to target any number of things. And then for each one that you've targeted, so each creature, each player you've targeted, you reveal the top card of your library. It deals damage equal to its converted mana cost to it. And then you repeat the process for everything. And then you can play all those until the end of your next turn.
And they're going to be X spells that cost almost nothing.
So you're going to draw a bajillion cards, and then half of them are going to be like Aurelia's Fury, Reality Spasm, Magma Opus that costs nothing to cast. After you only spent 3 mana to cast this 9 mana effect, you're just going to get so much value out of this dumb, usually like janky, like, hey, this is kind of a fun card I put in my deck. Instead of being a fun card, it's like, hey, this is a really good card I put in my deck.
In what deck is Soulfire Eruption one of the best cards, one of the biggest headaches? Like, oh no, Soulfire Eruption.
Well, I guess Soulfire Eruption is kind of always an oh no when they cast it, but it's really an oh no when they cast it for 3 mana.
Yeah, but I think the likelihood that they cast all those cards is like 0. But in this deck, it's going to happen. You just might as well quit.
Yeah, that's completely fair. All right, Soulfire Grandmaster is...
Here's the reusing.
It's so weird. Like, Soulfire Grandmaster, you pay 4 mana to reuse, or so any instant sorcery, the next instant sorcery you cast this turn, instead of going to your graveyard, goes to your hand. So what you do is you use something like Reality Spasm to untap all your lands. Oh, okay, I have 50 floating mana. I'll use 4 of it on Soulfire Grandmaster. I'll do Reality Spasm. Oh, I have 100 floating mana now.
That's a lot of lands. You really only need 7, but we have 50.
You really don't need much.
Gives you infinite mana.
It does, and this gives you infinite mana really, really easily. And there's other combos with this card in this deck because everything you do costs so little to do.
Oh, man, if only there was a way to pay off infinite mana in this deck, like Aurelia's Fury maybe,
or like any.
You just win the game with any X spell that you can divide damage.
There's a million X spells already.
Yeah.
Like, so this deck already is going to have ways to pay off. Like your ridiculous X spells that all exist in the deck already. Oh, they're just the payoffs for this infinite mana combo that's in the deck.
Yeah, Soulfire Grandmaster is one of the coolest non-legendary cards, I think, of the past 10 years. A lot of people love this card, and it really has no homes. But here's one. And then we also have Willbreaker, just kind of mono nonsense. Whenever you target a creature an opponent controls, you gain control of it until Willbreaker leaves. So if you have a sack outlet or something, I don't know how you ever lose.
Okay, so this just turns your Reality Spasms, your Aurelia's Furies into control spells. Like
gain control of all creatures your opponents control.
Yeah, silly. Like, again, another horrible Magic card that I suggest playing in almost no deck. Makes a home here. And one of the most confusing ones that we only put on here, it's not even the best card in the deck because there's way more. Like, if you delve into a Nada deck, you're going to find lots of ridiculous stuff. But Volcanic Offering is hilarious.
I love how confusing this is.
It is extremely confusing because we have to declare targets when we cast a spell.
Before we pay for it.
So, first thing we have to do is declare we are casting Volcanic Offering. Upon doing this, we have to choose which opponents are going to get to choose the other modes on the card.
The other targets. So, you target a non-basic to be destroyed, and you target a creature to be dealt 7. Okay. Right, that's going to reduce it by 2. So it can't cost more than 2 in a red, but the opponents decide what the cost of the rest of the spell is, because if they target the same creature and the same non-basic land, the spell costs 2 in a red. But if they switch targets and make it target 4 total things, it only costs red.
So something funny about this card that actually can happen because the way the game works. So say you have 1 mana. You only have 1 red. As you cast this spell, Okay, you declare it, and you do everything on the card, and then it says, okay, pay cost.
You can't.
If an opponent has chosen the same thing as you, you cannot pay cost. So it just bounces back to your hand. You can keep repeating this for a little bit. Now, I know it's against the rules to keep repeating a game action that results in the same thing over and over again. But it's funny because what you can do...
Come on.
No, well, you can go, come on, but you can go, okay, you're not going to help me? I'll choose other player. It's like, they don't help me? I'll choose third player.
That's pretty funny.
It's just kind of a little funny thing, an interaction that happens with this card.
I think it's the weirdest thing that I've talked about on this channel in, like, years.
It is. It's incredibly strange to cast a spell that... I think this probably works with the Join Forces cards too. Casting spells that require your opponents.
But this is like your opponents literally decide how much mana you pay.
Well, there's also assist. Assist is a weird one too.
Yeah, you're like, and they're like, mm-mm.
Yeah, it's just really weird interactions. All right, this one's interesting because though her deck is incredibly unique, because she is such a popular commander, you've seen it all before. But it's Winota, Joiner of Forces, who is 2 white-red for a 4/4 whenever you attack with a non-human. You look at your top, it's like a million
6.
cards. No, it's a million. You look at the top million cards, you get a human from among them, tapped, attacking, and gains indestructible. You do that for each non-human that you've attacked with. So if you attacked with 5 non-humans, it's top 6, bottom. Or take 1, bottom. Top 6, take 1, bottom. And you just do it over and over again. So this deck ends up making cards that are usually pretty terrible really, really good, and I find it very funny. Like, okay, example, Ragavan Nimble Pilferer. We don't really, our 1-drop, we just want 1-drop non-human creatures.
Right, this one happens to be pretty good for a 1-drop, but it's still way outclassed by everything else that's going on in Commander.
So in CEDH, I think Ragavan is a legitimately very good card. But it's not just good in CEDH. In your normal Winota deck,
you just want this.
Ragavan is just good. You're going to, like, I think the way Winota plays out is you want to plan for your early game super hard, and Ragavan does that, like, over the top well, because when he comes out, if there's nothing else in the field, if you're first player, you're just going to get in all these chip shots, and it'll ramp you into your Winota to do all the things you want to do sooner.
But it also dashes in the late game, so that's an extra attacker with haste.
Yes, and and if they don't have the right blocker for it, which not everyone will in a game of Commander, it just goes back to your hand, and you got something for free out of it.
And then, like, these next 3 we could probably go over pretty quick. Ornithopter, it costs 0 and has flying and isn't a human. And that's literally it.
It's so good.
Phoenix Chick has haste and evasion with flying. It can come back, but that's not even really what we want to do. Even if that text wasn't there, this deck could probably still play Phoenix Chick. And then Ginger Brute, which kind of does see a little play, but this one, we want the evasion, and we want the fact that he's a gingerbread man, but not really a man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we do care about. I think Ornithopter and Ginger Brute do see play in other decks. Like these, it's not like. But the reason this deck is looking for them is like, what is its type? Because if Ornithopter is a 0 mana, like this is something you could change for every other deck, and it wouldn't care. If it was a 0 mana human that did the exact same thing, no other deck would change its mind about playing Ornithopter that was playing it, except for exactly this stupid deck.
Yeah, you really want to map out what's my turn 4 going to look like. Probably you got 4 of these crappy creatures that are going to attack, and then you're just going to get 4 humans, like the 3 that we're about to mention.
Yes, exactly. So then these humans, like I don't think any deck plays Engrass Marauders, which doubles your damage output.
But it's a 7 mana human.
It's a 7 mana human, and it's so big and over the top. Muriel sees a little bit of play. The Shield of Argive. It's not bad, but like it's so much better when it comes out and it's a human that you cheated out in the play, and now when it attacks, it makes non-humans for your Winota later. It's so silly good in this deck.
You don't get the attack trigger right away, obviously, but this is going to be indestructible. It's going to make it to the next turn, and I really like that if your opponent has a trick that they want to cast, but they want to wait until after you get your humans in play, because that makes sense. As soon as Miro hits the field, they can't respond. Yep. They're done.
Yeah. Also, this last one represents something that is a lot of CDH decks are doing. It's a stacks piece.
Hate bears.
So there's a lot of human hate bears. There's like Thalia, Heretic Cathar.
Oh, there's Thalia.
There's also Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. And there's Magus of the Moon, which is the one I actually put on this list. They're all just human hate bears. So you just put them in your deck. And they're really, really good in CDH where the rule 0 doesn't really care what you care about these. These don't see as much play outside because a lot of them are mean. Though Thalia, Heretic Cathar is one of the less mean ones.
Yeah, like the 2 Thalias, they're really not that bad.
They're not. No, I mean, Thalia, Guardian of Thraben is very annoying to a lot of decks.
Yeah, but still, I don't know how mad I can be about it.
That's fair. All right, let's move on to the next one. And this might be the most unique commander of all time. it's close because this card is absurdly good, and it takes cards that do something specific, it makes them do something else, basically. That's how cool this card is. It's Obeka, Brute Chronologist. You can pay 1 and tap her to end the turn. I was actually thinking of Sundial Infinite. Actually, you don't pay anything. You just tap her, and you end the turn as long as the player whose turn it is wants to end the turn. So,
and end the turn comes with a lot of baggage.
A lot of baggage, usually removing triggers from the stack. Something funny that, something like that you can randomly do with this that just is a interaction. If a player say, end of your turn, I'll cast Cyclonic Rift. Oh, would you like to end the turn, this other player?
They probably would.
It's so awesome that that's just an interaction that happens with Obeka. It's so cool that it's like we can work together to counter that spell for basically free.
Yeah, your turn's already over.
All right, but let's get to the unique cards. And the first one is a brand new one, and I think it is super cool. It's Red Sun's Twilight, X red, destroy X artifacts, okay, and then you get copies of them that sacrifice at your end step. But
yeah, there's a trigger to sacrifice
them. Trigger to sacrifice them. So you do that, you use all these artifacts, and then you move to your end step. All right, they're going to be sacrificed. Activate Obeka. Yes, I would like to end my turn. I keep them forever now.
Yes, and as a PSA, I'm sure there are plenty of people here who did not see our previous complete Nambo video, but Obeka has one of the biggest Nambos. People are playing active Treason in Obeka decks thinking that it works. It doesn't do anything. At the end of the turn, even if you end it early with Obeka, they still get their creature back because as end of turn effects just end. The turn is over. They still get their thing back. You need to create a delayed trigger to return it. That's the only reason it works with Obeka.
So yes, you're looking for things that say at the beginning of the next end step, at the beginning of your end step. You're you're not looking for until the end of turn. The end of turn is whenever the turn ends. End step is a spot that creates a trigger.
Yes.
Another one that's a terrible Magic card. Ideas Unbound. Blue, draw 3 cards. At your end step, trigger, delayed trigger. Discard 3 cards.
No, I'm good.
No, I'm good. Yeah, I literally it's just 2 mana, draw 3. That's a really, really good rate. It's as close as you're going to get in Commander to playing Ancestral Recall, unless Treasure Cruise. But
actually, Visions of Beyond with a full graveyard. Checkmate.
Fine. This is not actually the closest you're going to get. It's the 5th closest you're going to get.
That's still pretty good.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
One of the best Magic cards ever.
These next 3 I absolutely love because they go from being these jank whatever, maybe I'd play them in some decks somewhere cards to absurdly good cards. Final Fortune and Last Chance are red, take an extra turn off this. That's broken because that's what we're going to do. But there is a delay trigger that we actually do have to get rid of, and that's at the end of that extra turn, we lose the game. Alchemist Gambit is actually a new one that can be cleaved to not make you lose a turn, but it also does the same thing.
We're just going to try to lose the game and then stop that ability.
2 mana extra turns, and Alchemist Gambit is a 3 mana extra turn. That is an absurd rate for extra turns. 2 mana extra turn, literally banned in Commander.
Yes, and if you're looking for a way to make Obeka decks lose on the spot, just play Stifle in your deck. Oh, you're going to tap that Obeka? No, sorry.
Another super good one, Glorious End. All right, you can just end anyone's turn right on the spot, but at the end of the next turn, you just lose the game.
But we won't.
We won't. We have Obeka. So you guys get to make somebody lose their turn, basically, for 3 mana, an absurdly strong rate.
I also like Sneak Attack. Play the most big, gigantic monsters you want. You can almost build, build your entire deck towards this move, because there's plenty of other cards that do this. They bring a creature in for limited time only and then create a trigger to sacrifice it later, and we're just going to stop that. So here's my Ulamog. It just costs 1 mana. Sorry, it had haste too.
Yeah, Ilharg too. Yeah, Ilharg is also one. It's just literally all of my creatures cost a red mana. I don't cast them, so you can't even counter them. You can't counter these creatures, and they just come into the battlefield directly right away. Another unique interaction from the exact same set, so this one was probably saw with them. Hellkite Courser. It's a dragon, and when it enters, you get your commander. It gains haste, and then you can do whatever with it. Well, in most cases, you're going to attack, but not this case. In this case, what we're really going to do with it is we're going to just go to our end step, where we'll bounce back to the command zone. But we're going to tap her and end it to get rid of that trigger.
So we just get to cast, a 6 mana, 6/5, and then Obeka, which costs 5. So we're cheating 5 mana at least.
Yeah, you're cheating your commander, and it's really good because this cheats commander attack. So it's much better as the game goes on. Obeka is going to be the key centerpiece of your deck, so she'll get removed a bunch. So this just lets you cheat her out later in the game.
Yeah, Sneak Attack loves Hellkite Courser too. Why pay 6 mana for it?
And I love this next one. This next one is really funny. We just went over a bunch of delayed triggers that can be backbreaking and make all the cards you set bad. Final Fortune, you just lose the game. So if you don't have Obeka or Sundial the Infinite on the battlefield, okay, you can't cast Final Fortune. But there is a nice little caveat that can save you sometimes. Like, say you go Final Fortune with Obeka on the field, and somebody chooses to kill it, and you're like, well, I guess I have to end my turn now. What you can do instead is you can wait till the end step and use Tail's End.
Counter the trigger.
Counter those triggers. It's just a little bit of insurance because you can't guarantee Obeka. You can't guarantee the Sundial every single game, but you can use the Tail's End to like have the effect you want more often.
Oh my god, this might actually be a deck that plays Disallow.
Wow,
I
you're
hate
right.
Disallow, but
You're
this
right.
might actually be a deck that plays it.
Yeah, no, Disallow.
The only deck ever.
Like it's because it is an overcosted cancel, like which we talk about not liking overcosted
It's
cancel.
actually just cancel.
Yeah, it's cancel in most cases, but the fact is we want the Tail's End effect.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's actually I think Disallow also a very playable card in Obeka.
Let's go to a monocolor commander that is actually just broken in half. It's Eudora Grave Gardener. 5 mana 5/5. Your non-token creatures dying turns them into forest lands that are face down. Also, really weird. So they enter the battlefield untapped when this happens. And I don't know if Wizards just decided this works or if this was already established, but morph creatures, if my Den Protector dies, it'll return face down as a forest. I can still unmorph it for 1 and a green. So guess what? If I have a sack element in play, every 1 and a green I pay is just Eternal Witness regrowth over and over and over.
And there's just actively 0 mana unmorphs. Or reveal a green creature from your hand, like this stupid boar thing.
Yeah, and Proteus Machine is the 0 mana morph where, like, I don't know, you choose a creature type or whatever, but the problem for your opponents is that you sacrifice Proteus Machine. Okay, it comes back as a forest. Make a mana, unmorph it, sack it, comes back untapped. I just have a mana. Well, how about that?
And you just keep doing it over and over and over again. There's a million little combos in the deck. Life from Limb, another.
Also busted.
It's so dumb.
And for some reason, Eudora doesn't say like a non-land creature dying, so you sack like you have let's just say a Solemn Simulacrum. Okay, you sack it, it turns into a forest that's also a creature. It's still a non-token, just sack it and it just continuously becomes a forest.
It's so silly.
Forest creature, yeah.
Yeah, just ridiculous.
What a joke. There's like 4 cards like this too. There's like Living Plane and there's some kind of elf that does it.
Oh yeah, Living Plane, that costs, I think that card's like $100.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's just a reserve list card.
And cards that are actually fun and cool in the deck, Scrib Ranger and Quirion Ranger, they return forests to your hand to untap creatures, but you can rebuy in a fair way the creatures that died and are now forest face down.
That is a lot more fair than most of the things that we're trying to do with this deck.
And Perilous Forays is just kind of ridiculous. It's super fun. It's 5 mana, and its only ability on it is pay 1 and sacrifice a creature, go search for a basic and put it in play tapped. So you can turn all your creatures into forests tapped for literally 1 mana. Like 1 single mana in response to a board wipe or something turns your entire team into tapped forests and also their forest that you're then tapping to sacrifice the next
Forest,
thing.
2 forests. Like
Yeah, you just chain them all into untapped forests, which pay for the next sacrifice. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's so dumb. And all of our stuff coming back in forest, we're going to take landfall triggers. A great example, because BZ loves this card, that's here. Tireless Tracker, obviously. I mean, any landfall is going to be very good in this deck because your non-token creatures die into lands, meaning you get landfall way more often than you expect.
Yeah, and you can also just chain infinite landfalls. So if there's a positive one, like you gain life, well, there you go, infinite life. And Altar of Dementia I put as probably one of the best sack outlets in the deck. Goes infinite really well because you don't need a payoff. It is the payoff.
Yeah, exactly. It's silly.
Like,
silly
I don't know
card.
why this card is just so broken.
It is broken and absurdly good while being stupid unique because the cards it's taking advantage of are not cards that most decks take advantage of. This stupid Morph Boar, this stupid thing that was part of
Teamer Charger,
this stupid Morph Boar that you're seeing on this screen right now that BZ just named that I already forgot, Teamer Charger, is amazing. It's absurdly good in this deck. It's part of an uncommon cycle of unplayable trash in Commander.
Yeah.
That's just randomly broken in this deck.
Yeah, don't leave home without your Life and Limb and Perilous Forays.
The other, it's not even like good. It's not even a good version of this. Like, there's the 4 other ones. There's some of them there's better cards, but it doesn't matter because they're not green.
Yeah, they're not green.
Next, we have a partner pairing, partner with, actually. It's Rhoda and Timon. Okay.
You forgot about these cards. Be honest.
You did forget about these cards. So what Rhoda does, whenever a creature becomes tapped, if it's not in combat, it gets a +1/+1 counter, meaning you can get real big real fast. And Timon taps stuff down every single turn, so they work together. So he taps the stuff down, and then she gets bigger from it. Okay, this is hilarious to me. So hilarious. Ythrazi Monk, a card that is a limited all-star and okay in Commander. Just okay in Commander. This deck, amazing. Game winner, literally going to KO players because you're just going to hold up this 5 mana, pass the turn, and every time you hold up 5 mana, your opponents will be expecting this, which is great because they'll have to play around it even if you don't have it, which is hilarious. Flash it in right before your turn. Tap down every single creature your opponents have.
Let's say there was 18 of them.
18 of them, which is not even ridiculous.
6 each?
6 each, or even like say it's a smaller board state, she can already have counters on her. It's not like she doesn't gain counters over time. All right, her power is now 21. It's a one-shot, and all of your opponent's creatures are tapped down.
Super cool. It's kind of like what people do with Yahenni in a board wipe, except this is like weird white version.
Yes, and it's I think it's even cooler.
I just like Verity Circle. Whenever you do the tapping with Timon and whatever else is in your deck, because this is, of course, a deck that cares about tapping creatures that aren't attacking. I mean, you love that. You just draw a million cards with it. It's better than Rhystic Study in this deck, probably.
It's absurd. It turns out you're going to probably play some of the giant killers, which is an example of this is the good version where it's got cut down so it can destroy a creature first, and then it's just a tapper. Tappers are like it's a small creature that you pay mana to tap down another creature. They're all over the format. There's probably a few good ones you're going to put in the deck. Like there's a Kithkin that's just 1 mana, and then you pay 1 mana to just tap down something. You're going to put those in the deck because they end up putting a counter while preventing the best attackers from coming at you.
Yeah, and Cone of Cold, very similar to Githrazi Monk, where you tap all your opponent's creatures. They probably won't untap, odds in your favor to do that. And then you can basically kill 2 people if the things line up the right way.
Yeah, the only other deck I've played Cone of Cold in is a dice rolling deck. So
yeah,
that'll tell you something there. Okay, we also have Citadel Siege, which is actually, terrible.
It's like a second copy of Timon.
It is. It is a second copy of Timon because on the one side. And the other mode is put counters. No. We're choosing the tap down stuff.
The bad mode.
Yeah, we're going to stop creatures from coming at us. Or Beezy's favorite card.
Topple is so cute. Is like the cutest little guy. I have him in a deck just because of how cute he is. But he actually, if we have Delirium, which is very possible, instant sorcery land creature, it's not that hard. Boom, we have another Timon.
Is Topple cute is always going to be a question that comes up on this channel.
Yes, it is.
I think it is
undeniably cute.
I don't think it's undeniably cute. I think it's...
Well, you're denying it, so that makes me wrong.
That does make it wrong. Yes, I am denying that it is cute. All right, let's move on to a trio of cards. We have Theft of Dreams, Borrowing 100,000 Arrows, and Tamiyo. They all draw equal to the number of tapped creatures target opponent controls.
We just showed at least 2 ways to tap them all right away.
Exactly. There's always going to be a ton of tapped creatures on our opponent's side. We're going to draw a ton of cards from these. And these just aren't good cards.
These cards are horrendous.
Like, horrendous. But when the whole deck is focused on the idea of tapping down our opponent's things, well,
I'm in.
Here we go. Now we're in.
And then Ithilid Harvester, you forgot about this one too, didn't you? You can tap creatures with its adventure, and then when it enters, it kind of like morphs the creatures that are tapped into useless face-down 2/2s. That's kind of like a board wipe.
Literally, both modes are good on this card. It does the tapping down, so we get everything tapped down, and then you just turn them into useless creatures afterward, which is so cool. Hopefully, they're not playing the forest deck because they'll have morph creatures, and you're going to turn those face down, and he's going, "Oh, you idiot! These have morph. I'll turn them face
My
up."
Eudora deck. You fool.
Eudora versus Rhoda and Timon. You're going to see this interaction all the time.
It's a stalemate. Yeah, this is like a weird deck. I wouldn't really know what to expect before this video if I was playing against this, but dang, you got to be ready for Rhoda. If you can't kill it, you're in trouble. And they have blue, so they can protect it with counter magic.
Yeah, this is one that while making this video that I hadn't looked into too much. I kind of like it. I might build this one.
It's kind of cool.
I might build this one,
especially since you can call it Tiny Tim. I don't know why. Like in Rhoda's artwork, Timon is very small, so it's literally Tiny Timon.
Timon is just he's like a little tiny spirit.
But on the card, bigger than Rhoda. So I don't explain that, wizards.
Well, Rhoda,
call flavor judge.
Well, lots of tiny things are really strong sometimes. Moving on, we have Glissa the Trader, and now I'd always thought this card is kind of unique, but I never really looked into it at all until I was playing with Cam from Play to Win. He has a casual Glissa the Trader deck that is not a CDH deck, and this deck is unbelievably cool. Like, it is so cool, and the way it uses artifacts is ridiculously unique.
Yeah, you want things like... I just love, actually, the random legends that happen to synergize with this that actually came out recently. We have Emotech the Stormlord, which cares about artifacts leaving your graveyard. And if you do, you get 2 2/2s out of it. Oh, Glissa says, kill your opponent's stuff, and I'll do that for you for free.
Yeah, which is just like an absurd synergy because I've noticed that Glissa returns stuff at such a high rate because of things like board wipes that this might just be ridiculous. Something cool, say you have a Malika Rebirth, which suggests any Glissa deck play. You have Emotech out in Glissa. Usually you'd want to save Glissa. Not this time with this board wipe coming. We're going to save Emotech. So Emotech will stay on the battlefield, come back, tap. Oh, what's going to happen? Glissa brings back all the artifacts that are in that graveyard because there's like 15 triggers for it.
Even though she's dead, her triggers still go off.
And then Emotech's going to make 30 zombies in that case.
I'm in, yeah. So you really want to fill your graveyard. You want to have like as many artifacts, useless or otherwise, in your deck as possible. I also love Drivnod, Carnage Dominus. Keep those artifacts in the graveyard because now your death triggers for opponents, stuff dying, doubled. So double artifact return.
And what she actually takes advantage of the most is we're going to play artifacts that we want to reuse. So something like Mind Stone, which we see all the time. Like Mind Stone is
a green deck?
It's a very, very played card in Commander, but it sacrifices itself. Same thing is true of Command Sphere. It sacrifices itself to draw a card. These cards get so much more equity in this deck than they would usually. You actually want to sacrifice it. Usually Mind Stone is like, that's the desperation. Like, all right, I need to draw a card. I'm getting rid of some of my mana to do this.
But in this deck, you just pretend that it says, instead of sacrifice, return it to your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
How much better is that card?
Yeah, exactly. It just goes back to your hand. It's like ridiculous. Nile Spellbomb will just get repeated over and over.
Basically, rest in peace.
Your opponents just aren't going to have graveyards for the rest of the game.
There's no way to stop this. You need your own Nile Spellbomb. That's the only way to do it. I love the fact that this deck has to play so much removal. Like, it encourages more spot removal than normal, which is normally bad. But a 1-for-1 exchange is actually a 2-for-1 in your favor now because you're going to get an artifact back.
Yeah, and like extra, proving that point, Executioner's Capsule, usually a terrible rate.
This is an infinite loop.
It's not technically infinite.
It's a finite loop.
This is a finite loop, but if you have infinite mana, it's an infinite loop. Yeah, you play it. It's still finite. It's based on the number
you need to
of
have infinite opposing creatures.
You play it 1 in the black, and then you pay 1, tap it to destroy target
you sack it.
You tap and sack it to destroy target non-black creature.
Oh, wait.
All right. A creature died on your opponent's side, destroyed by this. You can just return this, or you can return any other number of these silly things you're doing.
So 1 black, destroy a non-black creature an opponent controls. That's like an emblem that you have with this deck. Arcbound Ravager is a way to sacrifice any artifact at any time. If you have any way to use them at all, even just to sacrifice a bunch of them, if only to get counters on Arcbound Ravager to then put somewhere else, you're still going to get them all back with Glissa. It's out of control, and I think Arcbound Ravager needs to go if you're playing against the Glissa deck.
Yeah, get Arcbound Ravager out of your Glissa. You're absurd. Like, so absurd. And, I mean, Mishra's Bauble, Urza's Bauble.
They're free. Like, if you're Drivnodding and you're Executioner's Capsuling, that all just comes with a free Mishra's Bauble every time.
It's just a free card draw added on top of everything you're doing. Glissa is just... the way she plays is not like basically any other commander in the entire format.
What I love about specifically Mishra's and Urza's Baubles is even if you do it a lot on your turn, you're going to stack up cards, but you won't have to discard because you're drawing them next turn.
Yeah, because it has the what is that called?
Delayed trigger.
A delayed cantrip? A
slow trip?
A slow trip. That's the nickname for it. But if you want to see some unique unique commander ideas, a unique video about unique commander ideas, that's right here. Click it.
Take a slow trip over to it.
Click it. Peace out, Trap Scouts.